Mark Rothko is one of the most celebrated and influential artists of the 20th century. He is often recognized for his pioneering role in abstract expressionism. In this Mark Rothko documentary, we'll take a close look at his early years that shaped him to the great artist he became. His art, consisting of large glowing rectangles of color, are more than just paintings. They are emotional experiences. Rothko believed that abstract contemporary art could convey the essence of human drama, capturing emotions like tragedy, ecstasy, and the sublime. But Rothko's art was more than a reflection of these emotions. It was deeply connected to his own internal struggles. His journey through life, with moments of both intense creativity and personal pain, culminated in tragedy when he took his own life in 1970. Mark Rothko was born Marcus Rothkowitz on September 25, 1903 in Vansk, Russia, that is now named Daugavpils and a part of Latvia. Rothko grew up in a Jewish family and was the youngest of 4 children. His early life was shaped by the political and social instability of the Russian Empire, especially the anti-Semitic persecution that threatened Jewish communities like his. To escape this, the Rothkowitz family emigrated to the United States when Mark was 10 years old. They settled in Portland, Oregon, a world away from the struggles they had known in Russia. Despite the promise of a new life in America, Rothko felt out of place in his new country. He struggled with the forced optimism and cheerfulness that seemed to characterize American life. These feelings of alienation would later play a crucial role in shaping his emotional connection to art. Rothko initially set out to pursue a career in engineering or law. In 1921, he enrolled at Yale University, where he studied for 2 years before dropping out. At Yale, Rothko once again felt the sting of being an outsider, particularly as a Jewish student. This sense of exclusion and isolation led him to leave, and in 1923, he moved to New York City. There, he discovered his true passion, painting. In New York, Rothko began his formal art education at the Art Students League, studying under Max Weber. His early work was figurative, influenced by the modern fine art masters of the time, such as Paul Cézanne. During this period, Rothko formed friendships with other modernist painters, including Milton Avery, whose simplified and colorful depictions of everyday life had a profound influence on Rothko's developing style. By the 1930s, Rothko was moving away from naturalism, focusing on emotional depth rather than realistic representations. He painted scenes of New York's subways, streets, and interiors, often populated by mysterious, somber figures. Rothko's growing focus on emotions was reflected in his evolving artistic approach, where he sought to convey the deeper, unseen aspects of human existence. His early work resonated with the social climate of the time, shaped by the Great Depression, fascism, and the looming specter of World War II. In 1933, Rothko had his first solo exhibitions at the Museum of Art in Portland and the Contemporary Arts Gallery in New York. His work was evolving, but he wasn't yet the Rothko we know today. It was in the 1940s that his art took a pivotal turn toward abstraction. He began to rely on unconscious creative forces, producing works that became less about depicting the visible world and more about conveying raw emotion. As Rothko's style continued to evolve, he developed the signature color field paintings that would define his legacy. These works featured floating rectangles of color set against a luminous background. The effect was almost spiritual. These glowing forms seemed to transcend the canvas, evoking emotions in the viewer that were difficult to put into words. Despite his growing fame in the 1950s, Rothko felt deeply misunderstood. Critics and collectors often labeled his work as purely abstract. But Rothko insisted that his paintings were not about abstraction. They were about the human condition, about life's profound emotional experiences, tragedy, ecstasy, and doom. This disconnect between his intentions and the reception of his work led to growing feelings of isolation. Rothko's emotional life was deeply intertwined with his art. As his fame increased, so did his feelings of alienation and depression. By the late 1950s, Rothko's palette had darkened, reflecting his shifting internal state. his once vibrant works became somber, with deep reds, blacks, and maroons. It was during this period that Rothko received one of his most notable commissions. In 1958, Rothko was commissioned to create murals for the Four Seasons restaurant, located in the newly built Seagram building on Park Avenue in New York. It was an opulent space, a gathering place for New York's elite. Rothko, who harbored left-wing views and a disdain for the wealthy, was conflicted about the commission. He referred to the restaurant as a place where the richest bastards of New York will come to feed and show off. Initially, Rothko accepted the commission, intending to create a series of large black and maroon color fields designed to unsettle the diners. "I hope to ruin the appetite of every son of a bitch who ever eats in that room." However, as the time drew nearer to install the murals, Rothko had a change of heart. He realized that his work would be reduced to mere decoration in this luxurious setting. Refusing to compromise his artistic integrity, Rothko returned the commission's fee and gifted the murals to London's Tate Gallery instead. This act of defiance is a perfect example of the internal conflict Rothko faced throughout his career. On the one hand, he longed for recognition and success, but on the other, he was unwilling to let his work be commodified in a way that he thought would betray its emotional depth. As Rothko's career advanced, his emotional struggles intensified. His marriage since 1945 to Mary Alice Beistel, known as Mel Rothko, became increasingly strained. Mel had been a stabilizing force in Rothko's life, providing support throughout his career. Together, they had 2 children, Kate and Christopher. However, Rothko's growing fame, his deepening depression, and his increasing dependence on alcohol took a toll on their relationship. Rothko became more emotionally distant, and the pressures of delivering on major commissions added to the tension. By 1969, their marriage collapsed. Rothko and Mel separated, and he moved into his studio. This separation deepened of Rothko's emotional isolation. His health was deteriorating as years of heavy drinking and smoking caught up with him. In 1968, Rothko was diagnosed with an aortic aneurysm, forcing him to stop painting large works. Despite his personal struggles, Rothko continued to create. In the late 1960s, he focused on creating paintings for the Rothko Chapel, a project that emphasized subtle visual perception and a meditative atmosphere. Rothko was drawn to the philosophical ideas of Friedrich Nietzsche, who believed that art could dramatize the terror and struggles of existence. Rothko's chapel paintings reflected these ideas, blending rational and emotional forces to evoke a sublime and spiritual experience of vastness and infinity. However, Rothko's deteriorating physical and emotional health made it increasingly difficult for him to continue. His darkened palette and increasingly somber works reflected the internal pain that consumed him. On February 25, 1970, Rothko's life came to a tragic end. He was found dead in his studio, having taken his own life. The painter, who had spent his career exploring the complexities of human emotion, died in a manner that would forever color the way the world viewed his work. His suicide at age 66 was the culmination of years of emotional anguish. Though his life ended in tragedy, Rothko's art continues to resonate with viewers around the world. His paintings capture the depth of the human experience, offering both solace and confrontation with the emotions that define our lives. His legacy as an artist who explored the boundaries between abstraction and emotion endures in the powerful works he left behind. Mark Rothko's story is about a man whose life was shaped by deep emotional currents, alienation, struggle, and ultimately despair. Yet in his art, we find a reflection of the universal human condition, a mirror that asks us to confront our own feelings of tragedy, ecstasy, and everything in between. And that brings us to the end of Mark Rothko's extraordinary journey. If you enjoyed this Mark Rothko biography and want to explore more fascinating stories about iconic artists and their lives, remember to subscribe to our channel. Bye-bye.